Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Caleb and this is Drowning in Yarn. I was just outside walking my dogs and enjoying that it's finally starting to get a little bit colder. I actually was able to wear some mittens I made last year already this year. They were fingerless mitts, nothing too crazy, but it made me realize how excited I am to start thinking about making winter accessories that I'm actually going to get to wear soon. So I figured in this video I could just really quickly tell you a few patterns that I'm super excited to make this year and just share with you some of the things that you might see coming up here or over on my Instagram at Drowning in Yarn. So if you want to see what I may or may not actually finish throughout the winter season, then stick around. Real quick, before we get started, just don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying this video while you're watching. And if you haven't already, then definitely hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it to get notifications if you want to see what content I have coming up in the future. And leave comments if you want to let me know what you want to see from me, or if you just want to say hi. So most of my favorite things that I knit last year were my winter accessories. I think I really enjoyed them more than knitting sweaters. Maybe that was because I was still kind of scared of knitting sweaters last year a little bit, but I just loved knitting all the accessories that I made. Some of my favorite things were my night shift shawl by Andrea Mowry. I didn't think I would like knitting a shawl or even wearing one, but it turns out I really like both of those things. And I made some paddle mitts from Tin Can Knits. My other favorite accessory was my seafaring scarf from Pearl Soho. I don't even like knitting scarves necessarily, but I really like knitting that. But just thinking about knitting those things, they were smaller projects, a little bit quicker than sweaters, which I've been struggling with a little bit with just how much I have going on. They were also just really satisfying knits. I feel like they were those kind of knits where you get a lot of bang for your buck, and that's my favorite thing. Something simple that you can get a lot of wear out of, that looks great, and looks a little more complicated than it may be. So as I was thinking about all of those knits, I started compiling a list of things that I want to make this year. So I want to go ahead and share those things with you. First up, I want to talk about the shawls that I'm really excited to knit this year. There are two in particular that just recently came out that I'm so excited to knit. Currently, I'm working on a satellite shawl by Andrea Mowry. It's a brioche shawl with some short row of shaping that I'm knitting in various alpaca yarns, some Surrey and some brush silk alpaca, and some Holskarn yarns. I'm loving knitting it. I'm knitting it as part of a brioche knit along at my local yarn store, Knit One, which you would have seen in one of my previous videos. It's got me really excited to knit a little more brioche. Also, my night shift made me want to knit some more mosaic color work this year, so I'm gonna knit a mosaic color work shawl as well. First, I'll show you Max the Knitter's new shawl, which is the Partners in Crime shawl. It's a slip stitch shawl that was inspired by his dog. The colors were inspired by his dog, which is why I think it was called the Partners in Crime, because that's his partner in crime. The shawl is absolutely gorgeous. It's got an I-cord edge. The colors are insane, and I think I'm gonna try to stick as close to those colors as possible. I may try to switch it up to use some more budget-friendly yarns mixed with some more expensive luxury yarns. All the yarn in his sample was from Dyed by Dells, so I'm gonna pick up a little bit of Dyed by Dells and then use some other yarn as well to mix and match but achieve a similar color. And I'm so excited. I think this shawl is absolutely gorgeous. I think it will fit perfectly in my wardrobe and I can't wait to knit it. The next shawl I want to knit is the Fade Into You shawl by Matt Akers. It's a DK weight shawl with brioche striping in it. It's such a simple design that really lets the brioche shine. Because it's DK, I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And the brioche actually is knit in his sample using mini skeins. I think the largest stripe he said needs only about 100 yards. So it is the perfect project for skeins that I'm going to get as part of an advent calendar. Brian and I are making advent calendars for each other, and so I'm going to try to steal some skeins from that to knit into it, and maybe use a little bit of scrap yarn as well, because I think it would be perfect for both of those things. I can pick up some fun DK weight yarn and knit this shawl. I just really want more brioche patterns, and I think this will be the perfect one to just let the brioche stand out. And depending on the colors that I use, I think it could be just a great shawl to go with anything. So next up, I'm really excited to knit some mittens this year. I have a lot of pairs of gloves that I just kept buying because my fingers were always cold after I moved to Chicago, particularly whenever I'm walking my dogs and they won't do their business. But I found that mittens work the best. And then once I started knitting, I realized hand knit mittens are my favorite mittens to wear. So I've done a few mittens, including some colorwork mittens. I've done convertible mittens, done fingerless mittens. But this time I really want a super simple pair of mittens that's gonna let some special yarn shine. So I'm gonna knit Tin Can Knits World's Simplest Mittens pattern. I was looking at the hashtag for the World's Simplest Mittens and I came across this picture from Sis Knits on Instagram. She looked so happy in her mittens that it made me really want some. I had just ordered the day before some Daylights and Nightshades yarn from Harrisville Designs. Nightshades is a yarn that I've been eyeing for a long time and just haven't committed to buying yet. And then whenever I saw Daylights was coming out, I just knew that I had to have them both. So I got both yarns. They both have like an undertone, one of black and one of white, with like a dusting of another color. And when I say dusting, it's really faint, just kind of like, it's like a hint, and it's just perfect. And I knew I wanted something that would let those colors shine together. I got them both with the dusting of green. And so I think what I'm gonna do is World's Simplest Mittens with either stripes or color blocking with the Daylights and the Nightshades. And I think it's gonna look so good. And so I can't wait to make it. Plus I've always wanted to make the World's Simplest Mittens pattern. I looked into it as my first mitten pattern and just went with something else instead, and just have always meant to come back to it. And so I think this is gonna be the time for that. I'm always down for a great, free, super simple pattern. Now I got my hands covered, so I gotta think about my feet. Y'all know that I love socks, and I have two sock patterns that I'm also super excited to knit. The first one is Autumn Garden Socks by Tiff Neelan. I love Tiff Neelan's patterns. Y'all know that I love my Artist Garden socks. The Autumn Garden socks are a kind of chunky sock that I think would be great to wear around the house when my feet get cold. And I just love wearing a thick sock in my winter boots to make sure my toes don't just totally freeze and go numb in the winter. These socks are knit holding 3 strands of fingering weight together. So I think it's gonna be a great way to use up some of the yarn that I've acquired throughout the year to make room for next year's yarn and knit some gorgeous socks. The other pattern has been in my queue for a little bit of time. It's the Pop Radio Socks by Summerlee. Y'all have heard me talk about Summerlee so much. Her sock patterns are so good. And when I saw this pair of socks, I knew that I had to make it. It's so special and different. I just haven't made the time for it yet. So I think this winter, whenever I'm curled up watching my Hallmark movies, because they're my favorite to watch in the winter, I'm gonna knit myself some Pop Radio socks and just use some really fun colors, maybe some of those Advent skeins that Brian's gonna give to me in December. But those are the socks that I'm super excited to knit. I'm sure I'm gonna knit more than just those 2 pair of socks, but those are the ones that I have on my mind right now. Finally, I'm going to actually crochet. I last year started this kind of tradition for myself. It's been 1 year, but I'm committing to making it a tradition. And I'm gonna make some Christmas ornaments. I made a little baby Yoda last year. I knit a tiny little kind of scarf with some toothpicks as needles. And then I also made some little mittens. So this year I'm gonna knit some ornaments, but I haven't quite figured that out. But I saw this pattern that I have to make. It is a crocheted Michelle Obama. So the Crochet Michelle Obama is designed by Whitney and Marie Anderson for the Black Change Makers collection from lovecrafts.com. The money goes to some really great causes. It's really not that expensive for the pattern, but it should be worth so much more because this pattern's insane. I cannot wait to make it. I love Michelle Obama. This year I read Becoming, and just like, it made me tear up a few times. It just made me love her more than I already did. So if I could make my own little amigurumi Michelle Obama and put her on my Christmas tree, I'm just gonna be so happy this Christmas. So definitely check that pattern out as well, because I think you're gonna wanna get it. And Whitney Marie Anderson has a lot of awesome stuff on her Instagram page and in her shop. So go check her out as well. So those are really the accessories that I'm super excited to make. I'm sure I'm gonna find some others, some hats, some other gloves or socks, or maybe some sweaters, because I have a couple sweater quantities of yarn lined up. So if you want to see what I'm going to be making throughout the winter, stick around, watch my videos in the future. You can do that by hitting the subscribe button below and the little bell next to it, and tap the like if you enjoyed this video. Also check out my Instagram, where I'm going to post all the stuff that I'm working on. And until next time, enjoy knitting, stay warm if it's cold where you are, keep safe, go vote, and I'll see you later.